Today we have Garvit Khurana, who is a ESC graduate from Vellore Institute of Technology and who is now studying at Columbia University in the United States of America. Garvit, first question that obviously anyone which has in mind, does an Indian student get a fair chance into getting into the Ivy Leagues or good universities in America? What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Actually, the statistics show that we are actually the dominant people over there. If you look at
Okay.
the statistics for UCLA, for Stanford, for Harvard, for Columbia, like
Hmm.
the percentage of Asians that are actually getting more scholarships over there rather than the
Hmm.
Caucasians over there.
As a student from VIT, what would you suggest the students to do in order to make sure that they get into such prestigious universities?
First of all, there is no compulsion of making an extremely high GPA and not having any other thing to support it.
Hmm.
So what actually these universities are looking for, they're looking for a holistic profile. Like
Okay.
they're not just looking for textbook geeks with CGPA of 9.7, 9.8, and they have got zero co-curricular activities, no community, like there's no community efforts, there's no projects that on a larger level that they have done. So that's what usually people like that. I think so that is a major portion that is lacking in the applicants, and they think that this is because of my CGPA. No, it's not because
Hmm.
of your CGPA. The main issue is that you're not working towards the comprehensiveness of your profile. They're just not looking at academia per se.
Okay, but still there must be a certain criteria, right? Yes, okay, we should have at least this much of a CGPA.
Yeah, so that said, like if you're aiming for top Ivy League colleges or
Hmm.
like Columbia, Yale, or MIT,
Hmm.
like they expect a decent undergrad CGPA. So I'll suggest maintaining eight like around 8.5, 8.7 is pretty decent. And
Okay.
you know what? There's one more thing that people do. Actually, if you're lacking on CGPA, if you have something to bolster it, that will just give a profile a holistic view itself. Like I've
Okay.
seen people with CGPA 8.2, 8.3, and they've got into MIT, they've got into Cornell because like their extracurricular was impeccable.
Okay, so a follow-up to that itself, what kind of extracurriculars would you suggest why a person should aim for in particular, being in VIT?
So it does not matter actually which skill that like you excel in. Basically,
Hmm.
each and every activity has its own learning curve. But according to me, I'll say do that in which you have to achieve a level of sophistication, like either award or a recognition that contributes to your resume, rather than sitting here and like make sure that any project or any activity you're doing, whether it's playing guitar, whether it's weightlifting, whether it's like starting a club of your own, but make sure
Hmm.
that you're getting the level of recognition that is required so that you have something to bolster it in your resume.
Okay, so I saw that you featured in the GQ magazine. So would you say that that was a very good point on your resume? Is it
Yeah,
that kind of
basically,
extracurricular activity which those
yeah, like
universities look for?
similar type of activities, I'll say that people to do. Like I was working as a academic support volunteer in Make a Difference as well. I was there
Okay.
for year and a half. I was teaching class 11th girls in a shelter home physics for class 11th
Hmm.
and maths for students for class 6 to 7th, I guess. And after that, I got into weightlifting because I was
Okay.
actually pretty obese when I entered into the college. So I got a chance to write an article about my fitness journey in GQ, and that got published. So I use all that to write in my to include all that information in my SOPs. So
Okay.
that's what required. Like make sure any recognition you have must be added in your SOP because that is your sales script.
Hmm.
Just work towards that.
All right.
Any award,
So,
any recognition, as small as it may be, as large as it may be, anything will
hmm.
do. But you need
um,
to have something to bolster it.
not many people usually, find themselves be okay with, putting themselves out there in terms of these activities, and many of them are comfortable sticking to academics. That said,
Yeah.
do publications, their own projects, their own research that count in on their resume? Will that make a difference?
Yep, I was about to just explain you about that itself. So what you
Hmm.
can do is, suppose if you are a code chef or you are participating in code forces challenges,
Hmm.
make sure your rank is good. because you need to show them something, right?
Mhm.
There are lakhs of students who are there are lakhs of students who are there in code forces, who are there in code chef. But if you are attaining a certain level of ranking or a certain level of stars in that, make sure that you are mentioning it in your SOP, or make sure that you have put that in your LinkedIn profile, because your profile is always verified. Just make a note
Okay.
of that.
Mhm.
Anything you write in your resume will definitely be verified.
Okay.
Just avoid
So,
writing anything false in
mhm.
that. All the links you are writing in your resume should be valid. All the numbers you are mentioning in your resume should be working.
Okay. So, with
Yeah.
that said, so if I would put it in a summary, we could say that if you don't have good academics, try to do something in or good in extracurricular activities. And if you're not good in extracurricular activities, strong at academics.
And use those academic skills to write a blog or publish it on GitHub or something like that.
Okay.
Because the more interactive your project is, the higher your chance is that the recruiter will open it, or the university official will open it. Like
Mhm.
that what matters. Like if you've got a certificate, that speaks for itself. But if you're showing an academic project, and if it's not interactive, you're just opening a GitHub profile, there are a few readme files, there's a basic script lying over there,
Okay.
that's useless. No one
Mhm.
will download our software and then start running it. No, they won't do that. Make sure
Okay.
that it's hosted in Shiny or GitHub itself.
All right.
Or if you can't do that, just write a blog, basic blog. It does not multiple views aren't even necessary. Just a
Mhm.
basic blog. Make sure that it's hosted in Medium or Google, anywhere. LinkedIn, you can write blogs on LinkedIn, Medium, towards data
Okay.
science, analytics with there, anything you want. But
Okay.
make sure it's interactive, either in a blog form of way or it's hosted somewhere.
Okay.
If you're talking about
Now,
a project.
coming to the university part of it, now, does it make a difference whether I am in VIT in a particular stream or I'm in IIT with a particular stream? Like, how much of a difference does the stream make? How much does of a difference does the institution make?
Like stream does makes a preference. I'll hold a note to that. Like basically there are some requirements for analytics or for data science related courses that require you to study statistics, mathematics, or some level of physics at a undergrad level. Otherwise only
Mhm.
you can get apply for those levels. For basic general courses like engineering management, or for MBA level courses, there's no like particular constraint for undergrad studies, first of all.
Mhm.
For
Okay.
MS, there is. For core technical MS courses, there is a constraint.
Hmm.
For general courses, there is no constraint as such.
Okay. So can you walk us through your process as to when you started preparing and you had a clear mindset that okay, I have to be targeting this.
So I was pretty sure about that. I have to go study abroad, and I won't be sitting for placements in the second year
Mhm.
itself. So I
Okay.
started preparing from mid second year, working on some publications,
Mhm.
like working towards community with make a difference, and try to get an article published in GQ. So I was working on my extracurricular activities in the second year, and
Okay.
towards in the third year I started working on my academics. Make sure my CGPA is not falling apart, my
Mhm.
publications are published,
Mhm.
and making sure I'm creating good rapport with the professors whom which I can score good LORs.
Okay.
So that's where the connection part comes in, right?
So if the professor is, let's say, very good, so you get a better LOR, is what you mean to say. Like even the LOR itself has to be very legit.
Yeah, see, I'll tell you one thing. What
Mhm.
people do is try to get LORs from very famous personalities who have got so for example, like there are very good faculties in VIT who got extremely like par amazing H index, like it's 7 or 8
Mhm.
right now. So
Mhm.
that's exceptional. Like very few people have those. So, but if
Mhm.
you are asking those people to get you an LOR, that won't be that like it'll be lacking a personal touch. I'll recommend getting an LOR from a faculty whom you have studied 2-3 subjects, who knows you. Like what actually happens is it's not just a LOR with a letter of document that you're gonna be uploading. The universities have changed this format now. What they actually do is they send the recommender a link, and sometimes the recommender has to type it or grade you in an assessment. Like it's a multiple MCQ level assessment,
Okay.
like your strengths, your weakness, where you
Mhm.
lack, everything about that. So make sure there's a personal touch with the professor, so because then only he'll be willing to fill that, right?
Mhm.
If there's some other faculty, he won't take that much effort. He will just put a single entry everywhere. So that hampers your application.
Coming to the examination part of it, like getting into universities abroad, you obviously have to write GRE and GMAT. So when would you say is
Yeah.
the ideal time to start preparing for that? And like, do you have any tips as to what a person should do and not do?
Yeah. So I've seen people working like for 6 to 7 months for GRE and TOEFL, dude. It's not that much. It does not require that much effort.
Okay.
Like I think so, giving wholeheartedly 1.5 to 2 months is more than sufficient to crack that. Like we all are like, if you're studying in VIT, I know like you have definitely studied for JE. You have got a basic understanding of
Mhm.
mathematics. We just need to work on our vocab. For vocab, I'll recommend a very good book. It's Word Power Made Easy by Norman Lewis. You should definitely
Okay.
give it a read. It's an amazing book. It helps
Hmm.
you understand with etymologies, because like GRE verbal is a wordplay examination. Like out of 4 options, there's a very slight chance you have seen either of them. All 4 words will be new to you. So
Hmm.
for that, you need to know etymology, Latin roots of words. And
Okay.
for practicing, you can use the famous Manhattan 5 LB prep book or Magoosh online questions.
All
That's
right.
sufficient.
So, would you
And
suggest self prep, or would you suggest going to some institution for like preparation?
like it just depends on you. So what I just took the Magoosh online package, that self
Okay.
prep package itself, for
Hmm.
3 months. Yeah, but like if you think that you cannot keep yourself motivated alone, and if you need some level of competition with your peers, then obviously you should go for classes. Like
Okay.
what you can do is, what I did, like usually what people do is try to plot your scores in an Excel sheet and see where you're going. See, when you're giving different mock examinations, see where you're going. If you're saying that there's a level of stagnancy that you're approaching in your GRE scores or your TOEFL scores, what you can do is try to meet your friends and see what they are what strategies they are using, because
Okay.
there are multiple strategies available right now. Multiple, like if you just open top 10 strategies for verbal examination in GRE, you'll be surprised.
Hmm.
There are numerous categories. Just you have to look which one works for you.
Okay. So, can you tell what kind of grades are required in GRE, TOEFL, and like their weightage in the application as well?
Yeah, so for application, the most important part is SOP. Let me be clear about that. SOP is the single most important part of your application.
Hmm.
Then comes your LOR, your academics, and your GRE and TOEFL. So, like, this is a blunder that people make, is like they think GRE and TOEFL are like they are the primer for my application. No, they are just screening scores. They are just screening scores. Like if you like for TOEFL, I'll recommend getting 100. Like if you're getting 100 out of 120,
Hmm.
that'll be fine. I think so. There's a minimum criteria for 90 or 93 in some universities. Like UCLA asks for 93. University of Toronto is asking for 93, and
Okay.
all other universities, Ivy Leagues, ask for 90 out of 120. So 100 gives you a safe bet. And for GRE, try to get anything above 320. From 320 to 325 it's a good score. If your CGPA and co-curricular activities is well, you'll get into a pretty decent college with that score.
Okay.
Anything
Um,
over 320 is fine.
320 to 325.
Yeah, and for make sure your AW is strong as well. I've seen people who are getting like 170 in cons, 160 in verbal, and then
Hmm.
their AW is to 3.5. That's less. Like you make sure your AWA should also be 4. So like in the last week of your examination, you need to work on your essays as well, because
All
they
right.
like your AWA scores matter a lot in IB, because they
Hmm.
ask for a minimum 4.
All right.
Yeah.
Uh,
So like these are the screening applications. If you're not
hmm.
clearing these, your SOP is just going to the bin, right?
Hmm.
It's these screening scores are just required for your application to get into their system. After that, it's just your SOP, your resume, your holistic profile. That's all.
So, as you said, that SOP is the most important part of your application. So, can you like
Yep.
tell us what kind of like what should we aim at like writing an SOP? What all should be there? Like how to write a perfect SOP?
Like first of all, I like to say is like there are multiple blunders that happen while writing a SOP.
Hmm.
You should never pay anyone to write your SOP. Never ever. Like it's your sales script, man.
Hmm.
It's your own story, and no one can write it as impeccably as you can write. First of all, let me make that clear to you.
Hmm.
Take your time to write your SOP and make sure you get it proofread. So what is necessary is, even if people are writing their SOP, they're not proofreading it. Ask your seniors to read it. If you're hiring a consultant, ask him to read it. Ask some of
Hmm.
your what you can do is you can go on LinkedIn and connect with seniors of those universities, like like some VIT alums. You can go connect with them and ask them to request them to proofread your SOP, so they know what you're getting into.
Hmm.
And make sure you highlight who are you, what is your background, any co-curricular or academic achievements you have. And there's
Okay.
one more thing that is extremely important I like to mention is you should always write about your future goals and how that particular university and that particular course can help you achieving that. That is required. Like that is preferred.
Okay. Now, a lot of Indian students, they don't necessarily come from a financially strong background, and they do have aspirations to get into big universities in America. But as we know, American education is very expensive. So, do you have any tips as to how a person can get scholarship in these universities, like how they should work for that as well?
See, I'll be honest with you, like there have to be some level of I'll say perfection in the profile to get a scholarship. Like for Ivy League, most dominant scholarship is Fulbright, right?
Okay. Hmm.
There's a Fulbright scholarship like that sponsors your MS from almost all the Ivy League colleges. That's the most dominant scholarship right now in India for MS at least. I just know of MS. I'm not aware of any MBA scholarship
Yeah.
right now. So, but what happens in India is like, all the reservation system is extremely skewed. So
Hmm.
if you are a female, you are preferred. If you are already lacking from like, if you are below poverty line, then also you're preferred. So it makes extremely hard for a person like us to get a scholarship
Okay.
until unless you have something that you are extremely proud of. Like suppose if you're having a very high H index, you have done multiple international internships, or what you can do is I'll tell you what like one of my friends what he did was like he started working on a project with a professor at NYU pretty early, like in his second year or something like that. So that
Okay.
helps. Like he got an invitation from NYU itself to come over there and pursue his MS and PhD sponsored.
Hmm. That's
That's the way.
nice.
Like getting scholarships is difficult rather than getting an invitation to pursue research. That's it. That is easy. And
Okay.
the scholarships that are available for masters are usually for research profiles only. There's no scholarship as such that is providing you some good college name and then you're working for some other industry. It's not how it goes. If you
Okay.
read Fulbright requirements or any other dominant scholarships that are given to people, those people have a good research background
Hmm.
because India promotes research while doing masters, right? Yeah, our MTech courses are more research oriented, so they
Hmm.
expect similar type of profiles for people who are going abroad. Like they don't prefer professional endeavors; they are into research endeavors.
So it is very difficult for like us to get scholarship in MS courses in America at least.
Yeah, it is hard. Like if you're aiming for pool A colleges, it's definitely hard. So what you can do, like this is not like I also face a similar option. Like if you are
Mhm.
applying for a pool B college, you'll definitely get a good scholarship. Like if your profile is good, if you're getting
Mhm.
into CMU, if you're getting into Columbia, and then if you're applying for ASU or if you're applying for University of Maryland, they'll definitely give
Mhm.
you good scholarships, right? So that's how it
Okay.
goes. So what you can do is like I also use this. You should have a like varied range of universities that you are applying to.
Mhm.
Pick a few safe universities, pick a few ambitious ones and a few moderate ones, and make
Mhm.
sure you're not applying to too many universities that hampers your visa application.
Okay.
Up like I think so maximum of 10 is sufficient. It should not cross 10. 10 is his upper limit. Like
Yeah.
I've seen like a few of my friends in VIT as well, they applied to 17 universities.
Oh my God.
17. Like it's around $110 per application. So you're spending 2.5 to 3 lakhs on application itself. That's too
Mhm.
much.
And what made you choose America and not other countries?
So America particularly as well. So actually I've got a research, a little bit of internship experience in NUS as well. NUS Singapore,
Okay.
National University of Technology
Mhm.
Singapore. So what happens is in Singapore, what I personally felt was that like Southern Asia is more dominant towards promoting their own culture rather than inducing Indians. Per se, I'll be honest with you.
Mhm.
Like their culture promotes if you have got a Singapore undergrad and if you have got a Singapore schooling, then only you'll be promoted very easily. It's hard
Mhm.
for Indians to make your way into that. So that's why I left along. Like I didn't prefer South Asian universities. And if you're
Mhm.
aiming for the other options you have is UK, Europe, USA, and Canada. So
Okay.
Canada is upcoming in technology, but it's gonna take some time. So if someone is looking for a PR perspective, like planning to
Mhm.
settle over there and get a decent education, Canada is the perfect option. Like they're providing. very easy PR opportunities, and the education is pretty good as well. University of Toronto and University of British Columbia are doing an extremely well job.
Hmm.
And then in the UK, what like during my time there was an issue. So what was the case in UK was like Europe didn't give the OPT. There's an operational training period of that's for 1.5 to 2, like 1 year to 2 year, depending on your course. If it is a STEM course, it's for 2 years after your degree, and if it's a non-STEM course, it's a single year after your degree. And you have an opportunity to stay in the country even if you don't have a stable job right now, and only if
Okay.
you're working 20 hours in a week. So
Hmm.
during that time, the OPT period for Europe was 2 months. Now it is
Hmm.
increased to 2 years back. So therefore, I
Okay.
didn't plan to apply to Europe. I didn't apply to any university in Europe.
Okay. Hmm.
I applied a single university in Canada and 8 universities in USA.
Coming to the last question, when we enter fourth year, we obviously have to make a decision whether I should sit for placement or whether I should continue higher studies. So, what would you suggest a person should do? How do you suggest that they should have a clear aim? Like, should I sit for
First
placement?
of
Should I
all,
go on? Yeah.
yeah, like that depends on individual to individual. First of all, like if you are planning to get an MBA,
Hmm.
you should definitely sit for placements. Like for MBA, if you plan to get into extremely good colleges, graduate business school, Stanford or Harvard or
Hmm.
CBS, Columbia, they prefer work experience. I'll be honest with you. Whatever they say, if you see the class profiles, there are people who have got work experience from 3 years to 10 years, and they are
Hmm.
applying for MBA right now.
Hmm.
So for MBAs from a very good college, until and unless you are like, there's one more clause also. So if you are from a startup background, like if you are into startups, then it's very easy for getting directly from bachelor's to MBA from
Hmm.
Stanford, Harvard, and Columbia, because all those are currently promoting the startup culture. If you're not into startups and you're just carrying on with your basic technology profile and you haven't got any work experience, so that will downplay your application. For
Hmm.
MBAs, I'll recommend getting into a job first. Get a decent get a decent experience for 2 to 3 years. That's more than sufficient, and then start applying.
MBA. Okay.
For masters, they can just go ahead. No worries for masters applicants. Like the economy is also back on its track, and it's gonna be a V-shaped recovery.
Hmm.
So, and actually for MS students, it's gonna be a slight, like there's a slim chance that the competition is also gonna be less fierce this time, because
Hmm.
there, particularly speaking for Asian countries, there is a little bit downplay on the numbers that are applying right now. But if you see the statistics for MIT and Columbia, they are saying that they are getting more applications this year rather than last year.
Okay.
The Asian countries are applying a little bit less because, first of all, Trump has also put on some sanctions on China. So
Hmm.
China, it's difficult for Chinese students to get US visa. And like if you say the international education students who are applying in USA, Chinese like Asians are the out of all the Asians, Chinese are the most dominant one who
Hmm.
are applying abroad. So that gives us a slight advantage in this case for masters perhaps.
Just a quick follow-up on that. Can a person do placements as well as prepare for GRE side by side, according to you?
Yeah, definitely. Some of my friends are actually doing that. So, a GRE
Okay.
score is valid for 5 years if you're sitting right now. There's no worries. Get your LOR in position, get your SOP in place.
Okay.
And if you, yeah, like, then you can sit for a job itself. And if you, once you've got a decent experience, just use those LORs and SOP that you created and add
Hmm.
little, you just need to mix it up based on your job, or like, once you've got a decent job experience, you can give a direction to your SOP. Like my SOP was pretty general because I have done computer science. I haven't done any specialization, right?
Hmm.
So once, like after a job for a SDE role for 2.5 years, you can write on different projects you worked on or different stacks you use, and then you
Hmm.
can alter your SOP based on that and just very specifically apply for a master's or MBA
Okay.
program abroad.